Even Dean sounds like quite sweet.
Sweet is quite sweet.
Sweet and spicy.
Sweet and
spicy.
Sweet and spicy.
God.
Hello, I'm Jen.
My name's Rachel.
Welcome to our channel. We are Whisky Geeks.
Not Whisky Snobs.
So if you like all things whisky
And you're not a snob,
subscribe. We're going to talk about regions today.
Yes, so
there's 5 whisky regions in Scotland.
We don't know exactly from when they've been regions.
No, it's really hard to find out actually. So we know that there was a law passed in 2009. There was a law passed in 2088.
Wow.
There was a law passed in 1988.
Or regulations are set in stone.
Yeah. But there's been an idea of these regions for quite a long time anyway.
Longer than 1988 at the very least.
So we've got Highlands, Lowlands, Speyside, which is a region within Highlands, Campbeltown and Islay.
And so we're thinking that Lowlands and Highlands were the first split.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably.
Because of
that was to do with tax.
Yeah.
So that was to do with basically the English could more easily find the Lowland distilleries and more easily tax them than we distilleries that were hidden up in the Highlands and amongst the hills, intentionally trying to hide themselves and using methods to hide themselves as well.
So it ended up that Highland distilleries didn't pay as much tax, or any tax,
I think, as if they could manage none,
than Lowland distilleries. So everyone wanted to be a Highland distillery.
And the whiskey was better quality and lower price.
Yeah.
Because of that, as a fact. And the water is very good, they say, around that area, as well as Spey River and such.
Yeah, but there are 5 regions, and they all have their own, or it used to be kind of more so that they all had their own individual characteristics, which they still do for the most part.
Yes.
But it's kind of changing, so lots of distilleries are doing different things and crossing lines and things. For example, you get unpeated Islas and you get peated Speysides, which are kind of like crossing over with each other.
Yeah.
But so
it's a guideline now, not a rule as much.
So I would say, like, on a tasting, we usually start, if we're doing a Speyside, we'll start with the Speyside. Yeah. It's like the lightest, friendliest, easiest drinking of the whisky regions.
So Speyside, you usually say like floral and fruity.
Yeah, floral and fruity. They're known for their use of sherry casks, so sweeter as well.
And some of the best known whiskies in the world are Speyside.
And over 50% of Scotland's distilleries are in Speyside region. So things like Glenfiddich, Glenlivet, Macallan, these like big names.
Tiny area.
Yeah, all squashed in. They're like every 100 yards as you drive along the roads there, pretty much. And so they tend to be the kind of easiest drinking. But one of my favourite Speysides is Ben Romack, which is a peated one.
Smoky.
So it's really smoky and rich and lovely.
Yep.
So that kind of goes against the regional characteristics. So, weird thing, Speysides are all Highlands. But not all Highlands are Speysides.
Yep.
So the next region is Highlands. So it's like the biggest region?
Geographically, the biggest region,
but also
by distilleries as well. The most distilleries?
No, the most distilleries are Speyside. So over 50% of Scotland's distilleries are in Speyside. Yeah.
Crazy.
So if you include them, then yes.
Yep.
But if you're not, then I would say it's probably the biggest in like difference in flavour profile as well.
Yes, definitely.
So you've got from things like Glendronach over in the east, which is like sherry bomb, Speyside-ish. Yeah. Tomatin. Which is known as like the gentler side of the Highlands.
Light.
Right over to, or up north to things like Old Pulteney, which is like super coastal. And then right over to like the west coast, things like Ardnamurchan and things like that starting to get peaty. And then even things like from the islands, because islands are not a region of their own. They're lumped in with Highlands. So you've got things like Tobermory and Leitchig. Avanjarach.
Talisker.
Oh, Talisker from Skye. And Rassay and Torravig, things like that. So they're classed as Highlands, so you've got like opposite
huge diversity. Yeah, definitely.
So that's Speyside and Highlands. Lowland.
And Lowland is known as being the shite region. It
Don't say that.
So it was the least populated region.
It was.
And it had hardly any distilleries. Well,
We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute.
So, and more kind of grassy, light flavours in the Lowlands.
Yeah, so for me the main, like, characteristic is, like, fresh cut grass.
Yeah.
Freshness.
Yeah.
So, like, light and floral, like Speyside, but with that real freshness to it.
And I would think in the recent years, then Lowlands is the one that's grown the most in terms of
Oh
proportion
yeah,
of
like
distilleries.
how many distilleries? So in 2000 there were 3 distilleries in
the
Lowland.
Lowlands.
So there was Bladnoch, Glenkinchie and Auchentoshan.
Yeah, yeah.
And how many are there? Like 15 now?
10.
10.
Oh no, maybe 10. Oh, I'm not
and
sure.
there's
There's a
some
lot.
more
There's
still
over 10.
to open
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah, there's loads.
Yep. So.
So
Which
yeah,
times by 3 or 4 in
some
that space of time.
really good ones as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
new ones like Lindores, Lochlee, Eden Mill,
Yep,
Kings Barnes, Daft Mill,
Mill.
really, really good ones. So yeah, it's like the biggest booming region at the moment, and some really good whiskies coming from there. Campbeltown is next. Campbeltown has a real, like, it's got the best story of all the
Definitely.
whisky regions.
Yep.
So Campbeltown is the smallest whisky region in Scotland. It has 3 distilleries.
Teeny tiny geographically as
Teeny
well.
tiny, so it's right at the bottom of the Kintyre Peninsula.
Yeah.
This is my map.
Yeah.
The Kintyre Peninsula.
Yeah. Down in a wee.
It's down here. Campbeltown used to, in its heyday, have 36 distilleries. Which is mad, because it's like a population of like 2,000.
And that was the legal distilleries.
And that was
as well.
legal distilleries. So there were, like, everyone who lived there was involved in the whisky industry in some way. Every building just about was like a distillery. So it was known as the whisky capital of the world for a time. So in the Victorian era was its heyday. And the reason that it was so big for whisky was because it had lots of fertile farmland and lots of water, and it was a massive shipping port.
Yep, and we didn't have steam trains then, right?
Yes, so that's a key point. So everything was moved in and out by boat, and the whisky could get to Glasgow in 8 hours by boat, which was a really, really short time in those days. And then from there it could get to the rest of the world. So everyone around the world knew about Campbeltown whisky. But for a number of reasons, the railways being one of them, was why Campbeltown whisky started to decline. So it became more popular to move things by the railways rather than by boat. And so Speyside, they started building more distilleries there, and the distillery started closing down in Campbeltown. And by the year 2000 they only had 2 distilleries left.
Which were...
Springbank and Glen Scotia.
And then the Scotch Whisky Association were like, you've only got 2 distilleries, you can't really keep a regional designation with only 2 distilleries. And Campbeltown were like,
well, that's not very fair. So I think they kind of like looked at Lowland, and they were like, well, Lowland have 3. So is that the rule then? Like, we just need 1 more and we can keep being a region. And I suppose I kind of imagine that the Scotch Whisky Association were a bit like, yeah, sure.
you'll never do that.
You'll never go. Like, why would you build another distillery just to be a region? Because you don't need...
No,
you don't need to be a region to make and sell your whiskey, so why would you bother? And I don't think Glen Scotia were particularly bothered, but Springbank, good on them, were bothered, and they reopened a distillery that was next door to them. So I think originally that had belonged to one of their ancestors. So there was 3 brothers that were running Springbank at the time, and one of them fell out with the other 2 and decided that he could make whiskey better, and he built a distillery next door. And then called Glengyle. And it didn't last all that long. There is no Glengyle down there. It was just a name they thought sounded nice and Scottish. And so they kind of reopened that. They refurbished the old Victorian machinery that was in there, and they got some new stills. Now, I can't remember the distillery they got the stills from.
It was
Dalmannoch?
Well,
No.
it's
Ben
from
Wyvis. So it
Invergordon.
was, yeah. So Ben Wyvis was a single malt distillery that was part of Invergordon distillery, wasn't it?
But it was its own distillery in its
Was
own
it?
right in Dingwall before, and then the stills
right.
got moved to Invergordon, and then they got moved again to Glengyle. Those stills have seen all sorts.
They have.
It's
Amazing.
Pretty cool, yeah.
Well, yeah, so by 2004 they had another working distillery, so they could carry on being a region, but slightly cheating, because Springbank operates for 9 months of the year, and then they clean it all down, and then everybody goes next door. and then they run Glengyle for 3 months,
3 months,
and then
yeah.
everybody runs back again to Springbank. But luckily there's 2 new distilleries planned for Campbeltown. So there's Dalriata, which is going to be right in the town, I think.
Exciting, very exciting.
And there's North Star that are doing that. And then the Rassie Distillery Company have established a Macrahanish distillery.
Very exciting.
So it's
So
like
we'll
the
have
town.
5 in Campbelltown.
So there'll be 5, yeah. And Glengyle can't produce Glengyle whiskey because Glen Scotia bought the name and we're producing a blend under the name, and they won't give the name back, so they call it Kilkerran, which is the old name for Campbeltown, so it's got more relevance to the area.
Yeah, bit of beef between them in that respect.
But they're all pals, really.
Yeah. And I think the only region we didn't talk about as much then was Islay, and Islay has made a name for itself for all that smoky,
region.
peaty stuff. And we could do more of a deep dive into each of the regions and the history and the tastes and stuff behind them. Islay had a reputation for having barbaric people.
It did,
on the island,
it did.
so
I think that's why they've got so many distilleries, probably.
They were kind of left. I think the excise man kind of left.
To do their own thing.
Yeah. Because they were like, people in Islay might kill you. Like, and I don't know if there was actually tales of excise men going missing on Islay as well.
I think they probably were extremely hospitable, and that's why, and they had lots of drams, and that might be why they went missing rather than
drink them
they
to
were
death.
hostile.
No, rather than killing them. But whichever reason.
But it's very lovely to visit now, and everybody's very friendly.
Island hospitality across all the islands.
But Islay's known for its peaty smoky whiskey. But don't be put off if you don't think you like that flavour, because there are lots of different types of peaty whiskey, but there are also completely unpeated Islay whiskies. So Bunnahabhain's age statement range are all unpeated. Bruichladdich, everything that's named Bruichladdich from Bruichladdich Distillery is unpeated. They then do the peated Port Charlotte and the extra peated Octomore. And then also Kalila do an unpeated, which is lovely as well. So really you don't need to rule out Islay whiskey if you think you don't like the peaty stuff.
And you can get, if you like the kind of salty coastal flavour, like an Old Pulteney, Bruichladdich. A wee bit tangy, so like mature cheddar cheese. Awesome.
Well, that was a very basic run through of all the whisky regions. Let us know if you want us to talk in more depth about any of them.
Yes,
let us know in the comments down below.
We missed anything that you're particularly interested
anything
in.
you disagree with.
Yes, happy to have a debate.
Or
whatever.
But subscribe down here for more like this, and join us again next time. Slange! Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our video. If you did, please give it a like and a subscribe. And you can follow us on social media at The Grail Tastings. See you next time. Slange. You're awful low down. I'm too high up.
I think I've been slowly getting further.
I'm like melting into the couch.